What's up? My name's Mike and I'm an amateur woodworker. Today I'm going to install C-channels in an epoxy and walnut bench I'm making. Enjoy. Alright, so a little background about this bench. This wood started its life as an 8/4 inch live edge slab that was about 7 foot long and an average of 27 inches wide, and it cost around $700. It was kiln dried and moisture tested. I did rip off the live edge for another project and was left with a rectangular board which looked perfect for a bench. I took the approximately 60 inch by 17 inch walnut board that was left over after ripping the edges off, made a melamine mold, put the board in, and used about 1/3 of a gallon of liquid glass epoxy that was the deep 2 to 4 inch pour, and mixed it with black onyx diamond pigment to fill in the large crack. After the pour, I ran it through a Grizzly 24-inch planer at the wood yard where I originally purchased the board. Then I started at 100 grit sanding paper, went up to 220. The edges have a 1/2 inch round over. Finished thickness is approximately 2 inches. Alright, so a little bit about these C-channels. They are 14 inches long, 2 inches wide, and 1/2 an inch tall. I'll be honest, I wasn't quite sure the length they needed to be, but so I gave a couple inches on each side of the board. It wound up working out great. What made this install kind of weird was the inside angle of the C-channel. It wasn't a full 90 degrees on the inside, and so it made the cuts a little strange, and since this was my first time doing it, it definitely made it a little bit more complicated, but it all worked out in the end. It just took a little extra routing. I'll put a link in the description for the channels that I bought. I bought them off Etsy, and you can take a look for yourself, or just something to keep in mind. So I'm just double checking 14 inches off the side of the board, and then marking them up and getting ready to cut. Alright, so I am marking these lines, but before I do that, I'm going to double check and make sure that I am the 14 inches away from the end that I want, and that just leaves me enough space for the legs, and then I'm not going to have to compete for that room. So what I do is I took a yardstick I had at my house, I cut it in half on my miter saw, and put double-sided tape I just got from Target on the bottom of it, and stuck it to about 1/4 inch off the line. And here I'm marking the center of the yardstick, and then I'm going to mark the center of where the C-channel is, so if the C-channel line and this yardstick line match up, I know I'm in the middle of the bench and I'm not skewed to one side or another. So I'll add the double-sided tape and put it about 1/4 inch off of the line that I marked from the C-channel, and then I'll get my router out and get it ready to cut. So this part I'm going to speed up to 2 times, but here I have a DeWalt plunge router with a 1/4 inch upcut bit and a 3/8 inch brass bushing guide. I bought both of them from Amazon, and they were actually really surprisingly well priced, and the quality seems to be pretty legit, so that was good. I didn't want to set the router to plunge too deep, so I set it to a 1/2 inch because I didn't want that first pass to be too deep, and I didn't really know what I was doing, so I wanted to try and be conservative. Right as I got started, though, the bit got away from me, but I kept going and tried a little harder to make sure the bushing guide was up against the yardstick. I was a little worried the yardstick wasn't going to stick to the table, but the 2-sided tape held really well, so it wound up being a non-issue. One other thing I tried to do through the process was to make a pass or two with the router and then grab the C-channel and put it into the groove to kind of test fit, to see how it felt and to see what kind of movement it had, or if I needed to cut deeper or wider or whatever. This was probably due to a lack of experience and the fact that the underside of the channel wasn't quite at 90 degrees, as you saw in the picture from earlier in the video, so the top section actually had to be a little bit thinner than the wider section, and it probably would have been easier to find channels that were just at a perfect 90 degrees, or at least close to a 90 degrees. So I had to make several passes and move the yardstick a few times and then bring them in, so I had enough room for those C-channels to sit down into the actual groove. So I mean, in terms of cleanliness, it wasn't the cleanest pass, but since I'm making it for myself, it wasn't necessarily critical it'd be perfect. I was just mainly testing myself to see if I could actually do it. I had a few places say that I could just get flat pieces of steel and screw them, or use threaded inserts to adhere them to the bottom of the table, and that would give it enough structural rigidity so it didn't have any of the movement or potato chipping. But the channels seem more solid and longer lasting, and I have a family of kids that is pretty rough on things, so I thought it'd be better for this just to have the C-channels. So towards the end, I probably could have kept the yardsticks as a guide to cut this center part down so the channel sat flush. But the bushing guide really blocked my view of being able to see down, even with the little light that's in the router. That, and with all the chippings that came off it, made it difficult to see. So I took the chance, took the sticks off, took the bushings off, set the plunge depth, and then I cut the center without any of that insurance of having those sticks and guides to make sure I wasn't going to hit the router on the inside or outside edges. But it wound up working out pretty good. I took my time, did a little, cleaned it out, did a little, cleaned it out, and towards the end it wound up working out well, and wound up being really happy with how flush it sat. So at this point, I got the C-channels mocked in the grooves, in the holes. It's sitting flush. It's looking good. Happy with it. Now it's time to get the threaded inserts installed. So the kit I bought on Amazon, it came with a drill bit, the threaded inserts, and an Allen wrench. But the drill bit that came with it, it didn't have a pilot tip or a brad tip. So I just used a hammer and a nail and placed it on the inside of the groove on the C-channel to make sure once I got the drill ready that I'd get a hole where I could get the threaded insert installed and then get the hardware in straight. And so I didn't want to risk it, so I used the nail to get it started. So I got the drill bit out, just got a little bit of green painter's tape to set the depth for the threaded insert. And I could have used a drill block or some other sort of device that you can get at Lowe's or Woodcraft to get the hole straight. But I don't have a drill press, and I didn't really want to go buy any extra tools. So I decided to freehand this. The bolts and the inserts and everything went in really straight. And these little pilot holes I made with a hammer and nail wound up being really handy. It got them dead center. And so got them drilled out, got them cleaned out, got a countersink bit so the threaded insert would sit flat, flush against the wood, and it didn't come up just a hair and rock things around. And so the holes are straight, and I was so far so good. So in the past, when I've tried threaded inserts, I've had to guess what size drill bit to use, or I got on Rockler or some other website and found a chart, and you have hardwood, softwood, and it was confusing. So getting this kit from Amazon and having the drill bit with the inserts and an Allen wrench was really handy. Although once the holes were drilled out, it was a little bit of work to get them down into the holes just with the Allen wrench. But I didn't want to try and use a drill bit and strip it out or damage the wood, so just turned them by hand and got them down, and it really worked out. They were tight, and that was what I was looking for. I've tried to install them in the past, and the hole's either been too big or it's been too small, and the wood's had a little bit more stress than I was comfortable with on it, but this was not the case. Once I got the holes drilled, the inserts in, dropped the channel in, all the holes lined up really nicely. So I did use the drill, the hammer drill on this one, as opposed to the small Allen wrench that came with the piano bolt furniture screws. And they got in, went in straight, went in nice, went in tight, got it mocked up. And at this point, I was all done with one set. I did have another C-channel set to put in. I didn't videotape that. And once this was all done, I was ready to get some oil and some legs and finish it out. But this was step one to make sure that I was nice and sturdy and that this piece of furniture was going to last over time. And here's the final product. All the bolts fit in, sits flush, happy with the results. Here's the second channel that's ready to be installed, and the far one in the back. And here is the final product of the bench that's going along with the dining room table. Nice and sturdy, ready to go. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like and subscribe if you want. Talk to you soon.